Hey guys, it's Pastor Justin with another Snapshots from the Bible. It's been a little while, but now that Easter's over and our vacation is done, we can kind of get back into the routine of this. And I missed it because we always just get to examine a little bit of the Bible every week and just maybe consider something we haven't considered before. I think one of the problems we have when we study the Bible is that we get used to the stories so much that we stop thinking of them in fresh ways. We kind of just have our assumptions and yeah, I know that story. I remember when I was a kid, I went up to my mom saying, I don't need to know anything more about the Bible. I don't have to read it. I already know all the stories. And she laughed and she said, no, you don't. You don't know all the stories. And even if you do, you could reread them forever and be continually getting new details out of them. So I just want to point out one thing that kind of struck my attention this week from a story we're very familiar with, but maybe we haven't thought about this particular angle. So always when you're reading the stories, don't kind of, look at it from new angles. I don't want you to reinterpret the Bible in ways that it's not meant to be interpreted, but look for details that maybe you just kind of gloss over because you think, I know this story. So what we're going to look at is Daniel chapter 6 and the story of Daniel in the lion's den. And yeah, you know the story, right? Guy prays, angry advisors, this us. He's praying to other gods. You need to sacrifice and throw in the lion's den. And there's this conspiracy against Daniel because he's rising so high up in the esteem of the king of Babylon. Now, what I want us to look at is when we look at this passage and we look at what Daniel is doing. Usually we say, well, here's one detail. What he's praying, and he throws open the windows. Right, he prays 3 times a day. Throws open the windows. He's not hiding it, and I think that's a great perspective to look at. That Daniel is not ashamed of his faith. He's not trying to pray in secret. He's not boasting in prayer, but he's just being authentic about it. But what I want to look at especially is verse 10. And this is really cool. So right before this, the administrators they went up to King Darius. They said, "Well, let's make a law." King Darius said, "If anybody prays to anybody but you, they be killed." And Darius thought, well, he didn't really think too much. He just kind of fed into his ego, right? A lot of these kings kind of considered themselves god kings, and so he had this ego that was being fed. And in fact, the advisors here in verse 8 said, issue this decree in writing so it can't even be altered. So man, they are just really trying to set up an inescapable trap for Daniel here. And the King Darius put the decree in writing. But verse 10 is what I want us to look at. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. And after that, of course, the advisors who had been waiting, probably spying on Daniel, seeing what he'd do, run up to King Darius, pronounce, oh, Daniel's broken this law. Hey, by the way, it's in writing. You can't repeal it. You got to throw this guy in the lion's den. We know how that story goes. But stop and pause. A couple quick details. One, I think we need to look at the fearlessness of Daniel. That when he hears this decree, his first thought isn't, maybe I should pray on the down low. Maybe I should keep my windows closed. Maybe I could go a couple days without prayer. I don't want to get in trouble, so I'll just, the law is out there, so I'll just kind of keep it really quiet. And of course, we think about how there are many people out there. There are even many laws out there that tend to push back on us when we make our faith bold and pronounced. And so there's a great temptation for us just to back off and be quiet. And so we look at the fearlessness of Daniel, how bold he is. Again, not being arrogant, he's not thumbing a nose at the king. He's serving God above man, which is how it should be. But what I never really thought about this before is when it says 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God, just as he had done before. Made me think about how Daniel is being very regular in prayer, and the fact that he's in captivity and he's being regular in thanksgiving. And that's what really caught my attention when I was looking at this. I went, man, if I was taken away from my country, and I'd be crying out to God, going, "Why would you let this happen? You know, my family, my country, my home, it's all been taken away from me. Now I'm in a captive land with strange customs, with a king that doesn't serve God, with all these laws that I don't agree with. Would I really be in a state of thanksgiving? So much that I would want to get on my knees 3 times a day and thank God." But that's what Daniel does. He has a line of prayer. This guy is just on fire to pray to God, giving thanks in all situations, as Paul says. Even the situation where he's in captivity in another country and he's not allowed to openly worship the way that he would like to. I mean, they can't go to the temple, right? They can't sacrifice. There's so many of these. They can't hold festivals. There's so many of these privileges of worship that has been taken away from the Hebrews. But Daniel, 3 times a day, got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God just as he had done before. Daniel wasn't going to stop giving thanks to God just because a king told him he couldn't. And I just think that's so amazing. I think that puts us into perspective when we start whining about our lives. And I say this more about myself than any of you. And go, well, this happened, and I'm not really want to give God thanksgiving today. Maybe in a week. Maybe if something good, God gives me something good in a week, I'll come to him with some thanksgiving. But 3 times a day, Daniel said thanks no matter what. Let's try that. Let's take the Daniel challenge this week. 3 times a day, short prayer, just thank God. You don't even have to open your window toward Jerusalem. I don't even think we know which way Jerusalem is. But 3 times a day, thank God no matter what. Even if you're having the worst day of your life, even if it's a crummy day, even if it's one of those days where everything seems to be going wrong, you can find 3 things to thank God for. Trust me, because he is constantly blessing you. All right, that's it. That's it for Snapshots from today. Thanks for listening.